Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Coders Startup Podcast. I, as always, am Trevor Page, your host. This is episode number, 53 now we are on. So you'll be able to find the show notes at coderstartup.com/53. Today's a special show. We don't do this very often. This is, I believe, guest number 3, other than Carter Johnson, who we now just take for granted that he's always with us. We have a special guest host, if you will, Andrew OBrien. The best way to describe him is I call him Mr. Media Man, the triple M. So, Andrew, how you doing, buddy? Thanks so much for joining the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm good, and thank you for having me on the show. I know y'all don't have many guests on, so I feel very honored to be here. So what I do is I go around, and the past 3 years, I've been a public speaker, and with that career, I've actually been featured on over 70 media channels around the world. Some of those include stations such as MSNBC, USA Today, MTV, Al Jazeera. The list goes on and on and on. It's been a lot of them. And what I've learned is a new way of going after media exposure that doesn't cost $2,500 a month to hire the average PR firm just to get you a few media outlet coverage. And more than just getting the coverage, I teach people how to leverage that media exposure to really build an international brand out of that, and how to increase your audience size and increase the conversion rates as well.
Beautiful. So this is essentially, so the way I know that I'm doing a good job in my work is when I'm doing something that makes me feel completely uncomfortable and out of my comfort zone. And I would absolutely 100% put, getting media coverage with MSNBC. Haven't you been have you met the president or been to the White House or something like that?
Yeah, I've been to the White House. I went and spoke at the White House just a few weeks ago.
So you just, didn't even mention that in his, preamble. Oh, by the way, I've been to the White House.
I'm pretty honored you're just on the show after, we're following up the White House. Can we point that?
Plus, he's got a kick butt beard. For those of you who can't see this,
yeah,
that's
a solid beard.
Yeah, lovely. Beats mine, definitely. So, yeah, I mean, we're in good company now. So definitely, like I was saying, this pushes me outside of my comfort zone. I know nothing about this stuff, so it made perfect sense for me to say yes, because Andrew reached out and said, "Hey, does anybody have a podcast that they want to have me come on and speak?" And I think I was the first one to say yes, come.
Oh yeah,
by all means, be on my show. So I'm super, super excited about this. And for those of you who've been following sort of my stuff, Andrew's also the one who introduced me to the fellow that is sort of partners with Digital Marketer, and he's been helping me to redo my whole funnel. Andrew is the one who connected us. So if there are great things on the horizon for my business, then I have Andrew to thank for that. So there you go.
Well, let's hope for great things.
That's right. So yeah, take us through. I'm sure you already have done this many, many times, Andrew, with your process and what it is that you do. But if you assume that the listener is someone who's never thought about media coverage before, they've never thought about trying to go to the White House. What's step number one? What do you do? What is your best practice for these types of people?
So here's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to media exposure is that they don't think that they are worth being on the media, especially in the tech industry, which I know is a huge part of your audience. And when it comes to the tech industry, they're like, oh, there's no special reason for me to be on the media. But reality is, a lot of people can use media exposure to really build. I mean, really any entrepreneur can. It's just about how you package it and packaging it the right way. Because if you're in the tech industry, you're probably doing something different than everybody else. I mean, we all have competitors, right? But we all do things in a different way. Even if you're a coder or a programmer, you're probably programming or coding in a different way than other people. And it's just about honing in on that message of how you're different, how you're unique, and how you can benefit people by bringing something new to the table that they're not used to, by pushing out the old and doing something new. And so that's the biggest thing I tell everybody is, realize the worth that you're offering to this world. Even if it's a specific niche, it doesn't matter. Something that you're doing has worth to it. And when you get that media exposure, you're constantly bringing yourself in front of a whole new untapped market that you're not in front of already. And the best thing is, it's not Facebook ads. It doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost you, 14 cents a click. It's free. It's just free advertising. And why not take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, I guess all it takes is time, right? It's the time and effort that you put forth to get in touch with these people, and then the time about, making the trip out to bless them with your time in front of a camera or something like that. So
Right. And a lot of it, you don't even have to make a trip. I mean, Huffington Post does it through Google Hangouts. So a lot of my stuff, I haven't even had to travel. I can do it from my home, or they have a studio. Al Jazeera has studios all over the United States. So they'll just send a car to pick you up and you'll ride in a limo to a studio to go do an interview.
That's pretty cool.
I was just saying, tell me more about this. How do I get a limo coming to my house and picking me up?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. You feel like a celebrity for a minute getting picked up by this car. And I mean, they've even had to drive me to a studio an hour and a half away, and they'll send a car to pick me up to drive that far.
So, Andrew, who was the first station that you were on?
The very first station I was on was actually Fox News Austin, and It was just the local Fox. And, it's a smaller one, but that's, I tell everybody, you always start small. I mean, just like in business, you got to start with one client before you get 100. So I started small, and Fox News was the first one.
To that point too, I feel like, it's one of those like confidence builders. Once you prove it there, you can step up to like your next target and stuff. Whereas I feel like if you're just starting out and you're gunning for Forbes, it's going to be really, really intimidating. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, definitely. I tell everybody practice is key. You definitely want to practice, and doing the smaller ones gets you that practice. Because my first time doing a news interview, I don't know if you've ever had a video camera in your face, but it's really hard not to look at that thing. And it's really uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable feeling. It's not like talking into a camera on your computer. I mean, you've got this big old video camera, a bunch of people are going to be watching, and you're very nervous, and it shows in your interview. If you watch my first news interview to my last recent one, you'll see a whole different transition. I mean, just like being a public speaker, I sucked at first, but then I got really good a couple years later.
Nice.
Practice makes perfect. So yeah, I mean, if someone's saying, okay, all right, fair enough. I'm someone who maybe I don't think I'm that important, but Andrew's starting to change my mind. I've got a story to tell. I have some value that I could give to some media outlets. So where do they go from there? What is the next step from I'm ready to do this, let's do something?
So the first step that you want to do is you're going to want to start reaching out. I mean, just like I, got this interview with you, is I put feelers out on groups with podcasts. And if you have special groups with your niche, everybody's podcasting now. Everybody's blogging. Everyone's doing that. And that's the easiest outlets to get on. So you start there and you send out feelers and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I do it. Is anyone out there, have an audience that they feel would benefit from my content or my value? And the biggest thing I tell people is don't sell your service, sell yourself. Tell them why you're doing it. What's the passion behind it? Because every entrepreneur has a passion, has a reason to do what they do. It's not just because we hate having bosses, which is a big reason, but it's because we want to make a difference. We want to change something for someone. And it's about honing in on that message of why, not how.
Yeah, great point. And so with the Fox News, can you walk us through that process? Like, how did that come about? I'd love to hear the story of that.
Yeah, so what I did was I made a YouTube video, and I poured out all my passion into this 5-minute YouTube video. I didn't want to make it too long because we know attention span isn't very long. And especially with media outlets, they get thousands and thousands of press releases. And one thing I tell people is I have never once sent a press release out in my entire life. And a press release has never led to any media coverage for me. What I did was I sent this video out, and it just said, it just had a passion-filled video about why I'm doing, what I'm talking about, a recent book that I've written. And I sent it out to every local media station that I could think of. I just looked up the contact, and it's usually news@foxaustin.com or tips@kview.com. And I just sent it out to all of them. And Fox was just the first one to respond. And actually, after Fox, the same day, I had a response from Austin American Statesman, which is the local newspaper. And that reporter is what kicked off my entire career. He came out and we spoke for about 5 hours a day for 2 days straight. He wrote an article about me. It landed front page and full spread on the inside, and it got picked up by the Associated Press and went around the world, got front page in Honolulu and North Carolina and Stars and Stripes and other magazines. And that's what, boosted my entire career to where it is now.
So what did you talk about with this guy for essentially 10 hours? What did it revolve around?
So the past couple of years, I've been a trauma speaker. So I speak about trauma and overcoming trauma and how to do that. And I've had a very, very crazy life. And so I just shared my story, and he caught my story so perfectly and put in so much effort into catching my story in the right way that it went viral and it got picked up by the Associated Press. And I always say that he is the reason my career really excelled to where it did because of his effort and his dedication into being a good reporter.
So cool. There's always this I mean, you don't want to say that there's always one moment, because that sounds kind of scary for a lot of people, but there tends to be one moment in your career, whatever it is, that sort of changes everything. I mean, for me, a big one for me that I can, remember in my past was Lifehacker. Lifehacker picked me up and put me on their, front page for a bit, and that led to just, huge spike in traffic, and that's where most people started to hear about me, right? So as scary as it is, I think there's one moment. I think those one moments come, as long as you're out there and putting yourself out there, like you were saying, Andrew, you were constantly, like, you recorded that video, and you were sending it out to people and you're getting the word out. So as long as you're doing that, eventually something's going to happen. You're going to have your quote unquote big break. But you just got to put yourself out there, right? So.
Right. And I mean, a lot of people, what I tell them is, hey, getting on, MSNBC and Huffington Post, that's great. I'm very proud of that. But if you get on there once, that's not really doing anything for you. It's the constant exposure. Because if you listen to like a car ad on the radio, and when you're driving down the road, they'll say a phone number at least 3 times, because marketing tells you have to say something 3 times before it sticks, right? So showing up on the media once or twice is great, but it's not really going to do much for you. But I've been on Huffington Post 3 times. I've been on NBCnews.com 4 times. I've been on Al Jazeera 5 times. And so it's that constantly getting in front of that same audience over and over and over again, where they're like, man, this guy is always on here. I got to figure out what he's doing. I'm interested in him now. So it's about the constant exposure and never getting, I'm from Texas, so I'm going to say it this way, never getting too big for your britches. And I never say no to a podcast interview or a blog interview. I always find the time. And that's the biggest thing I hear from entrepreneurs. Oh, I don't have the time. Well, you don't have the time to scale your business. Why are you an entrepreneur? That's what media is. It's scaling your business.
If you listen to a lot of what Gary Vaynerchuk, things he
Gary
says.
Vay.
Gary Vaynerchuk. I said Gary V, and then I was like, well, people might not know who I'm referring to. So Vaynerchuk, but he says something so similar that he never turned down an interview, and he just, regardless of who it was, he would show up and give it his all, go as deep as he could with the knowledge and the insight. And I'm sure now, he just, his demand's out the roof, so he might not be able to do that. But I know for the first 10 years, that's what he credits really jump-starting his career. So great insight.
The hustle, baby, the hustle.
And he's a true hustler. That guy is always busy.
Oh yeah.
I keep getting notifications on my phone. I'll be, doing whatever. I'll be, sleeping, and he'll be, live on Facebook and doing something. And it's like, midnight? What is this guy doing right now? I always see him in airplanes, just hey, I just want to hang out right now. And he's in a hoodie and stuff like that. And I love the guy. Anyway, so there you go. The hustle's important. So
I got a question for you, Andrew, and I'm going to keep throwing these out.
Yep.
Trevor, you just tell me to shut up, but I'm so interested in this. How do you use any particular format for staying organized and figuring out okay, this is, I posted this many requests. This is kind of what my conversions are. This is how much time it took. Is there any methodology you have there or system that you use to organize things?
So I have a certain system that I use. So I have this template up on my website as an article that anyone can access. And it's actually called the Media Outreach Template. And it's a fill in the blank email. It's a very simple email. I already wrote it out for people. They just fill in the blanks and they send it out. And I just had one of my clients say within 2 hours, they were already accepted to a few podcasts. So it's about following. I have a standard fill in the blank email that I send out. I have a standard, a good biography that I wrote that is very strong, that gains interest. And I always offer a free gift to audiences whenever I go on podcasts. Every podcast I do, I offer a free gift. So it's about, you're not just trying to sell the audience. First, you have to sell the podcast host to have you on, right? So whenever I send out emails to podcasts that I really want to be on, or bigger name people, what I do is I send out this email that says, hey, this is my story. This is what I want to do. And in the email, I always say, hey, I listened to this certain podcast, and in this podcast, you said this, and this is, how it had an impact on my life. It's showing them that, hey, you're not just some random entrepreneur saying, get me on your show. You're saying, hey, I'm a listener. I like what you have to say. I feel like my message matches. And then I say, hey, by the way, I'm offering a free gift to, your audience if you have me on as well. So it's about getting them that reason to have you on. And my conversion rates are very high. I rarely ever do I have podcasts say that they don't want me on. Maybe one that just recently said no is Mixergy. And that's because, I'm not in the tech field and I'm not a millionaire. So I am successful, but I'm not a millionaire. So I'm not quite to that level yet, but I plan on getting there.
We gotta talk to Andrew.
Yeah, I know. We know Andrew, so
tell him what's up.
We can twist his arm a little bit. You gotta. We talked to this guy. He's perfect for your show. So yeah, we can work that angle for you. But now you mentioned the media outreach template. Is there a good URL for that so you can mention it to our listeners and they can take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's just patafactus.com/freetemplate.html.
Immediately, I haven't a clue how to spell that.
So it's patafactus is PATEFACTUS, and it's the Latin term for bring to light or expose.
Look at that. Google auto fills in the next word as Latin, just in case anyone's interested. So patafactus you said com/free
template.html. Or you know what? Maybe.
I'm just going to pull it up and make sure I can see it, and we can always put it in the show notes. Is it?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's free-email-template.html.
So the first thing, there we go. It opens up for me now. I see it now. The first thing that I think of as the tech geek and the podcaster inside of me is you need a URL shortener for that bad boy. You need like bit.ly.com/template or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I just launched this yesterday. So
okay.
Yeah, I was doing it for Facebook ads. So.
Okay. You are forgiven then, good sir. Well, that's cool. That gives them a starting point anyway. So yeah, I know from doing at least a little bit of research, because I did at least do a little bit of research on Andrew, is I know it's important to have some sort of or at least I've heard of this, a media page, or what is it called? A media package or something like that for people so they can see it. And what's the terminology there?
Yeah, the biggest thing is it's a media page. So when it comes, there's a difference between media page and a press kit. And a press kit is what every PR firm is going to tell you to make. And it's a freaking one pager that is overfilled with a bunch of crap that no one cares about. And Beautiful. So, there's no reason for that. And that's what your website is, right? Your website is your press kit. That's where you market your products. That's where you show the media that you've been on. That's where you have pictures, you have definitions. So it's just about, making your web page perfect to where it is your press kit. That is your press kit right there. Now, when it comes to your media page is the most important thing that every entrepreneur seems to be forgetting. And it's that, you'll put these badges on your homepage saying, oh, I've been on Fox News, I've been on ABC. And it's like, how many people can put badges on their website that have never been on TV before? I mean, that's so easy. And there's so many liars out there right now. You got to do more than that. And it's about making a page where you have, everyone's tech people here, so you have backlinking, right, which is a huge SEO thing. You have excerpts that highlight the keywords that you want people to be able to search for, and you have pictures and what shows you've been on, and you have an actual media page that's very organized. It's not just links. Here I am on Mixergy, here I am on Al Jazeera. It shows pictures. It's engaging. It has definitions, and it has a link to go back to where they can listen or watch you. And actually, that I claim that my media page is what got me all my international and national media coverage, is because people searched trauma on Google, and I was one of the top names that came up. And when they found me, they found my media page, they saw all of this. So every international and national media outlet I've been on actually reached out to me. I didn't contact them. They contacted me, and they said, hey, will you come be on my show? And that's because I became the top competitor in my market, and that's through all of my media exposure. People are like, why have you done so much media? And so that's my marketing. That's how I market. And it hasn't cost me a dime. It costs time, but that's it.
I love it. I really love it.
I love it too, because the way you're positioning it, you open it up for the media properties to know, like, hey, you're open to this. This is what you do. You're more than willing to come on the show, versus like so many sites out there, mine included, you're just kind of sitting there, and there's a lot of friction for them to engage that way. Whereas you're putting it up, showing them, hey, this is what I do. Come interview me.
Right. And when you get to the big boys, they want to see that you're comfortable. They want to see that you're confident. They want to see that you're good for their audience. And how they do that is they watch your other interviews. They listen to your other podcasts. They want to make sure that you're going to provide value to their audience, that their audience is going to connect with you. And so that's also what's good about the media pages. You're providing that proof of how confident you are on camera.
Right.
It reminds me of a strategy I read a long time ago. Ryan Holiday, in his book, Trevor, and I know we've talked about this before, but it's like the media stacking. So once you have a certain amount of interviews, or you've been featured at this level on this blog, then you go up channel if you want to do outbound marketing, and basically show them, hey, I was featured here. Check out our interview whatever. And then they kind of use that as social proof to pitch to their producers or whatever and get you on their blog, their show.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm relating this to, as Andrew was talking about this, the key is like he hit that word that we're interested in here on the Coder Startup. It's the marketing word. He talked about how this is his marketing. So for me in my business, I've grown my business, the majority of my business now comes in through content marketing, but it's taken me 3 years to get there. And I'm assuming, I'm just going out on a limb here to say that you could probably get to the very similar location that I'm at today in terms of my marketing that I have done and the traffic that I receive. You can probably get to the same point as I am here today a lot faster by doing the sort of media coverage marketing versus the content marketing. I don't know. What are your opinions on that one, Andrew?
Oh, I definitely agree with that. But it takes time. It takes dedication, because a lot of people, my biggest pushback when I'm telling people about what I do and how I help, they're like, well, I don't have time for that. And it's, if you want to focus on content, there's nothing wrong with content marketing. There's nothing wrong with any other marketing out there. But what this does is it's really influential, but you have to have the time to sit there and do these hour-long podcasts or 30-minute long podcasts, or take time to write those guest blog posts and not know if they're going to be accepted. And it's more work, but it actually helps you and it gets to your goal a lot faster. And so, I mean, even if you think about Facebook ads, right? So whenever you launch this and you post it up on social media, I'm going to my Facebook ads and I'm going to my pixels. I'm going to choose people who clicked and watched this video from your website. And that's going to be who I'm targeting. And I'm going to have my content marketing is going to show up to people who now have already heard me on your podcast, people who watch this, people who listen to me. And I mean, that's really easy to get conversions, right? They already know who I am. They see my face. In my content marketing, I always add my face. So like, oh, wait, I just saw this guy on the podcast and now he's up in my news feed again. And again, it's about constantly getting in front of that audience over and over and over again.
That's beautiful. You are sort of your own brand. I'm looking now at one of the headers on the images on your page that you sent us to, and I can see your picture is there, and I recognize that picture now. It's almost right. Like that's your logo. It's just your face. So I love it. Sorry.
Yeah, I focus on my face because I constantly want to be in front of my audience. I like the personal connection. I have Patafactus and I have that logo, and I always include that logo with my picture, but I want my face to be recognizable. So when people see me on social media or they see me out and about at conferences or whatever, they're going to be like, hey, I know that guy. I've seen that guy. And that's how you create that international brand, right? Because I've been that guy who's gone to nonprofit events and bigger events on the trauma side, and they've been like, hey, you're that guy that's always in the news, or hey, you're that celebrity. I'm not a celebrity, but that's how people think when they constantly see you on TV or on their podcasts that they follow or the blogs that they read, is you become a celebrity in their mind. And that increases your value, right? The more media coverage you get, the more you can charge. So when I first started out, I was charging $2,000 a speaking engagement, including travel and lodging. And that was just in 2014. And in 2015, I was charging $6,000 per speaking engagement, including travel and lodging. So media exposure actually led to tripling my fees. And I've got more speaking engagements. So it helped both sides.
So cool. And my mind is now racing. Anyway, Carter and I were part of a mastermind group. Every Tuesday at night we meet. And one of our friends in the mastermind group is launching this virtual conference that eventually is going to turn into a live speaking engagement. And I mean, usually our calls last for about an hour, and we usually break it up 15 minutes per person. But I think was it 45 minutes we were talking about this, Carter? I think it was 45.
Yeah, it was a long session. We were having a great time, though.
We were having a great time. I was so excited. I was, because for me, I would love to do this. I would love to travel. Like the thought of being paid to travel and speak in front, like that is my wheelhouse. But yet I'm not doing it. So this is like the perfect springboard. Is what I'm hearing from you, Andrew, to getting to that point, right?
Right.
It's a whole new revenue stream that I wasn't even thinking about getting paid to do this. It was more like I just would love to do it. So getting paid is just icing on the cake.
And how'd you transition from speaking on media properties to all of a sudden you're being booked for actual speaking engagements? Tell us about the transition there. How'd that start, and how do you foster it now?
So what I did is what, the biggest thing that people are talking about in the entrepreneur world right now is free work, right? And it's what we hate to do, but sometimes it's necessary to really get your name out there. So my first summer tour, I took $10,000 of money and I traveled across the country in a tour bus that had horrible air conditioning.
Oh no.
Always broke. And I had 5 sweaty guys I was sharing the tour bus with. It was a very interesting tour, but that tour is what I went and traveled and spoke to nonprofits and didn't charge anything. And I sold a few books here and there. And that was how I made enough money to go out and explore and drink and have fun. This is before I had kids. And so I got to go on this tour, and every time I went to a new city, I would always reach out to the media, and every city I went to, I got more media coverage. So I was out speaking for free to nonprofits, and my benefit of that was getting more media coverage while I was in there. So every city I went to all across the United States, they'd always have me on 2 or 3 stations, local stations or local newspapers, where they come out and interview me and take pictures or do camera interviews. And that is what, constantly built up my media portfolio, was the free work. So if you have the money to do free work, if you have the money to get out and get more exposure or go to conferences and speak and start out, spending your own money for it, it's going to benefit you in the long run. Because 1, people are going to see you as a professional and as someone that's really big in the field that knows what they're talking about. And then 2, you're getting more exposure in media that's going to help benefit you in the long run as well.
Yeah. But I think all the same rules apply here as they do anywhere else. You can't just go and speak somewhere about something random that maybe you don't put any effort into. Getting the gig is just the first step, right? It's like creating the product. Creating your product is step 1. Selling the product is far harder than creating the stupid thing. So I'm assuming it's the same thing here. You need to create the value in your presentations. You need to create the value in your interviews to be able to get them to love you in return. Then you get invited back, and then you get to it goes and it's like a snowball. It rolls and rolls, it gets bigger and bigger. So you need to provide that good content to everyone, I'm assuming is the prerequisite here for becoming more of a success.
Oh, definitely. So what I tell people is, we all know, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to believe in what you do. You have to have passion behind what you do. And that shows very clearly when you do media interviews or when you go out and speak on stage. People know if you're just doing it trying to make money or if you're doing it because it's what you love to do. And so, if I was out there and I went to a tech conference to talk about how to use computers, I would be like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm going to do some research and everyone's going to know I have no idea what I'm talking about. But if I go somewhere, I'm speaking about media or I'm speaking about trauma, either one of those topics, I'm going to know what I'm talking about. I'm going to feel confident. I'm going to feel confident in myself. And when you're confident in yourself, it's just like trying to get a girl to go on a date with you, right? You have to be confident or no one's going to want what you're offering. So it's about having that confidence and the belief in what you're doing and knowing. Because I tell people, I'm a media revolutionary. I have revolutionized the way that you can use media. And I do something that no one else has done. People are like, well, that automatically like, okay, I got to hear from you because you're talking about something crazy right now. And it's about having that heart behind what you do and really believing that you're changing something.
Love it. It's the authoritative aspect that you are preaching and that you are having the stance of and saying, look, I know what I'm talking about. You got to listen to what I have to say. It's
right.
Like demanding attention. And so it's tough. For us, some of us coders are a bit more introverted. So they need to be able to break out of their shell a little bit. And like I said, push themselves outside of their comfort zone. That's where the best things happen. So.
What's funny is I'm still an introvert, just not when I'm a speaker. So it changes when I get on stage. When I get on stage, I'm a whole different person. But if you put me in a social environment, I'm still an introvert.
There you go. And I think, it's because I think you hit on it. It's just the passion, right? If you are passionate about a topic that you're going to talk about, for me with entrepreneurship, and I know Carter's probably dealt with this many times, I could ramble on and on and on and on, and you need to, jump in and cut me off before you can get a word in because I love this stuff. I could just talk about this. This is what my dad and I do every day of the year for like an hour at a time. He knows when I say like, hey, Dad, got a minute? It's really, hey, Dad, got 60 minutes? So anyway, if you're passionate about it, then it's going to shine through, and it's going to hopefully be easier for, like Andrew said, he's an introvert. So if you're an introvert and you're listening to this and you're saying, there's no way I can do this, well, you just haven't found the right topic to speak about yet. What is it that you can talk about for 60 minutes straight without taking, a breath and popping your head up to look around? So, all right. So no more about that. I want to know. So you are someone, you can go out, you can reach out to all these outlets, you can Google them, you can go to the contact page, news at whatever, reach out with your template that you can get at the website that Andrew mentioned, which will be in the show notes. You go out, you fill out the template, you reach out to them, they respond back and they say, yes, we would love to have you. Now what?
So there's two different things. So there's two different ways I'm going to do it, either a pre-recorded interview or a live interview. Live interviews are a lot more scary than the pre-recorded one, because what's going to happen is the pre-recorded one, they're going to come out to your location. They're going to travel out to you. They're going to record you, and then they're going to change it into a 1.5-minute clip. So you're going to sit there and talk for 30 minutes, and they're going to take 1.5 minutes of that, and they're going to edit it. You don't have anything to worry about. You can stumble around your words, you can pause, you can cough, you can lose your breath, you can do whatever, and it's not going to matter. They're going to edit that out. So it's just about, making sure you know what you're talking about, communicating it the right way. But when it comes to live interviews, you really have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to answer any questions that come your way. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Just like you said, we have to be passionate about what we're doing. You have to be authoritative and be prepared for the challenging questions. Be prepared to answer things and be confident in the way you communicate, the way you sit, the way you make eye contact and everything. And that's definitely the one you want to practice more on, is the live interviews, and this is going to sound crazy, but an action step people can take is getting a friend to do a live interview with you. And it can be on Blab. It can be just privately. It doesn't have to be anything special, but it's getting that practice in before you go on live TV and really being able to be comfortable and confident in what you're sharing, and make sure that your friend is willing to ask challenging questions to test you out.
I like that. I like that a lot, especially on Blab, because at least with Blab, we've done a few episodes on Blab before, and you see random people just come in. They'll come in and they'll say, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" And you're like, "Oh my God, there's someone watching me right now." So
right.
It's a little bit of pressure, right? It's a little bit of real world. It's nowhere near the level of, I'm sure, a live interview, being shown to many hundreds of thousands of people. But at least it helps emulate it just a little bit, so you can put yourself in those shoes. So that's a good tip. What else? Are there any other great tips? Like what's the craziest situation that you've been in with this whole media coverage thing? What's the craziest situation?
So the hardest thing that I've been in, and this is something I tell all of my clients all the time, is people always want to bring up religion and politics. Always. And you have to learn how to deflect those. Unless that's your core audience, unless your core audience is a specific religion, or unless your core audience is a specific political party, you have to learn how to deflect those questions. And I always, if you watch any interview I've been on, they always bring up government, and I always find a way to deflect it. I always say, I think they're doing, the best they can. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to solve a problem. I'm not here to say someone else should solve that problem. And so, you learn how to deflect those questions. And a lot of the things, especially on the trauma side of business, people always want to bring up, their God. And I always say that's something I can't comment on, because I don't want to turn off half of my audience's ears. I don't want to sit there and only promote to Christians or Jewish people or Muslims or whatever it is. I don't want to sit there and constrict myself to a certain type of audience. So you really have to learn how to deflect and be neutral in these. You don't share your personal opinion. This isn't about your personal opinion. It's about, business, and business is never about personal opinion. Business is about getting every market into your sales funnel ultimately. So that's definitely the hardest part for me, was learning how to deflect those questions and not give my personal thoughts or opinions on it, because I didn't want to turn off half my audience.
It's great. I would never even thought of that, but I guess I could see how that would come up in your line of work. I don't know if a coder was to be interviewed, if they would bring up, what political, side you side on, or what's your views on religion. I can't really see that coming up, but hey, who knows, right?
Right. Well, and there's always competition too. They may bring up competitors, and you never want to be the hateful person. You never want to be the person downing, putting down another company, because that doesn't make you look good. So it's about learning how to just say, well, they do great things, but here's how I do it differently.
Nice.
And, it's just about deflecting that way.
Clearly, Andrew has had to think on his feet before, because he had the answer for that one right away. That's awesome. All right, let me hand it over to Carter. He's been silent for a while, and I've been talking too much. So
I'm just enjoying all this insight. I'm like taking notes over here. No, this is great stuff. I'm curious to know, what do you do after? So you land a big media appearance. How do you leverage that? How do you maximize it? What are the steps you take after everything's shot and it goes live? What happens?
So the first thing that I do is I make sure to tell all of my audience and everyone I know on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on all the social media outlets you're on, hey, I'm about to go live on this show where I'll shoot a little video from the studio. Mm-hmm. And so people feel like they're kind of there with me, makes them feel more involved, more part of it. And then after the show is out, and I'll tell everybody, I'll send out links so people can watch it later if they didn't get to watch it live, or if it was a pre-recorded, I'll say, hey, it's getting released on this day at this time, go check it out. And then that's when I go over to my Facebook ads and my pixels, and I start using that to really get back in front of that same audience who just saw me. So I'll do 7 days after a podcast release or a blog post is out or a TV interview is released, and I'll highlight that URL, and I'll only advertise to that audience who's already seen me, and I'll get them to opt in for my free guide that I offer. And that's how I get them into my sales funnel, get them into my email marketing. And in my email marketing, I don't focus on sales. So my sales always come from webinars or things or private conversations, but I don't sell to my audience, because a lot of things that entrepreneurs forget is you have to build an audience before you build a customer. You build that audience, and then you convert that audience into a customer. So I don't sit there and say, hey, come buy my program. I say, hey, I've got free access to my program if you want to come try it out. Or, hey, I'm going to do this live webinar on how to get media exposure. Come watch if you want to take part. Or I'm always offering free content that is valuable. I'm always offering action steps. I'm not just giving them theories. I'm saying, all right, here's my theory. Now here's an action step that you can take today to start to see a difference. So I'm always giving action steps to get my audience knowing, hey, this guy isn't, blowing smoke. He's actually telling the truth. I took his actions that he said, and just like the media template I told you guys about, I took that action. It's got me interviews, and I provide value before I try to sell something. And that's how I constantly get my audience engaged and get them following me and get them, wanting to reach out. Because the best thing is the one-on-one conversations, because those are the ones that turn into the larger sales, is the one-on-one conversations. So it's just about creating a fan base before creating a customer base.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Speaking of the one-on-one conversations, it made me realize. So I was like, how did I even get to know Andrew? Like, where did we meet? And I realized, hold on a second, he just sent me a friend request on Facebook that I accepted. And he was different from everyone else, because when I accepted the friend request, he reached out and he said, hi, thanks for adding me. My name's Andrew. What's going on with you? And I was like, oh, geez, I actually have to interact with a stranger that just all of a sudden is a friend. And I was like, hey, what's kind of, and it evolved into now he's on my podcast. He's hooked me up with one of his buddies, and I've paid his buddy some money. Who knows? Maybe I'll pay Andrew some money in the future too for his services with media coverage stuff. Or maybe you will, now that you're listening to this, and maybe you want to go and hire Andrew and his services. So that's a good question. If someone wanted to get a hold of you and they wanted to learn more about you and get that free gift, is it that website that you gave to us that they would need to go to? Is that the best first point of contact with you?
Yeah, it's just patofactus.com, and the link is right there on the homepage, and they'll see this 3-step guide is the first thing they'll see pop up. There's a live webinar on there. You're all tech guys. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I'm on a live webinar. It's an automated live webinar through Stealth Seminar. So it's a webinar on there, and there's also that free guide that you can get. And all you have to do is fall for my trick and opt into my email.
That's right. There's the blunt honesty. There you go. When you're talking to other people who know all about marketing, they know all the tricks. But hey, as long as it's valuable, that's all we care about. So Patofactus, again, PATEFACTUS.com. I think that this has been a great show. I don't if there's any more. Do you have anything else, Carter, that you want to throw at Andrew?
No, this is great. I've got a full set of notes. This has been awesome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that we haven't even brought up that you would love to talk about, Andrew? Like, is there anything else we've missed?
No, the only thing I want to put out there again is that you want to make sure to constantly get that media exposure. I can't hit on that enough. Is that always be looking for more exposure. Never think that you have too much going on. Never have too much on your plate. Take an hour out of your day, an hour out of your week to do at least one podcast, one blog a week, and get in front of that new audience. That's the most important thing, because it's not costing you anything but a little bit of time, and you're getting in front of a whole new audience. And you never know. I mean, even a podcast with 2 followers, one of those followers could be your next future client that invests in the most in you. So you never know who you're going to be talking to. So, and always put your best into every interview you do. Never just, half-ass it just because, you don't feel like there's much of a following. Always put your best, because one day someone may be watching that, or one day that podcast could become huge, and you don't want that to set the standards for your audience.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. I'm sure that the audience of us coders here really took a lot out of it. I know I have. Clearly, Carter has. He's not even a coder. He's just a marketer, and he's like, "Oh my god, I got to do this. I got to do this."
Yeah, I'm excited.
Thanks so much for joining us. And for those of you who are listening, don't forget, go to codersstartup.com/53 to get the show notes, to get the patafactus.com website. If you don't know how to spell that, we will put that in there for you. And there you go. Happy learning. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now. Is that what we say? Cheers.
I think so.
Adios.
Till next time.
Till next time.